Okay, so just a quick introduction into a Toreando series, and then we're going to go into an overview of what I'm trying to accomplish, what she's trying to accomplish. When we look at a Toreando series, all right, for the top player, when we're working without the gi, you're basically using a touch and go method, okay, where with the gi, I have robust grips that I can hold on for long amounts of time. Without the gi, I don't. So what's going to get me past my partner's guard ultimately has less to do with the grips and more to do with the foot position. Okay, so I'm going to use Toreando to just move from side to side and step past my partner's hip line and shoulder line to start outflanking her. Okay, so I'm going to use the initial setup with the Toreando to start getting into positions that it would be hard for me to otherwise if I didn't have any control of the legs, where she can just move towards me and face me and start to give me problems. Okay. In addition, I can use Toreandos to get into situations where it would be hard for me. Okay. For example, half guard. And if you saw this in playing my matches, but most recently the Roberto match. Most recently, at least when I'm filming this, the Roberto match, where I Toreando one side, I Toreando back the other side, and then I settle down into a half guard. If you go against a good half guard player, and they have a cross shoulder post, they have a knee in, and it's hard to just barrel through and go into a linear entry to get them flattened out. But when you start with the half or Toreando, for example, and you throw to a side, you start to pass from here. Now, as your partner goes to start recovering and bring everything in, I can force her into a situation where we're in a half guard, where normally it would be hard for me to get past her top arm and her top leg. All right, and we can chain now and unify the idea of starting with a loose pass and moving down to a tight pass. Because ultimately, I have to get chest to chest and control my partner's head and shoulders to actually pass her into side control or mount. Or obviously, get chest to chest and pass her into a north-south. Okay? When we're in a Toreando situation, we're talking about guard retention. The framing is going to be very important from here. Okay? Because from every other position that we looked at so far, it was relatively static, okay? Meaning you're stuck in one specific position and your grips are pretty much the same to go into escapes. Like if you looked at, if you recall the outside Ashigarami series, right? Every escape, my partner had control of my head and arm. The grips were pretty much, here's the grips, these are the grips you must use, here's how we escape using these grips. But when you're in a Toreando situation, the grips are changing so rapidly that you have to play between a certain set of grips, and you don't just use one set of grips, one set of framing for each given position, because there's so many different positions that I can be in from bottom and she can be in from top, and these are so dynamic and they're changing so fast that you have to be able to unify these grips and use them appropriately. So we're going to talk a lot about how we can post and how we can frame and how we can grip our partner in these very fast-paced situations that are always changing. Okay, so it's going to be less about what specific grips my partner has and more about what my framing is going to be like from a bottom position based on how far or how close my partner is to me. Okay, because again, everything's moving very quickly and we're not in general static positions like we were in the previous moves. Okay, so what we're going to be looking at is partner outflanking us, first passing to side control, then outflanking us, moving past our shoulder line and moving it to north-south, how we can recover from each. Okay, and again, we're going to talk more about framing and things like that as we move on. All right, so now let's look at a general overview of what I'm trying to accomplish and what she's trying to accomplish from top position, okay? If we're going to be in a situation where we're down and she's looking to outflank us. Okay, this isn't just with Toreando. Your partner can leg drag and pull a leg across, start to outflank you like so. All right, this is any time your partner outflanks you where she has 2 feet outside your legs, okay? Ultimately, what she's trying to do is she's trying to get past my hip line. This is why I was talking about how the steps become more important than the grips in the legs, okay? If she can take a strong grip on my legs and push my legs to the side and never step past my hip line, and she's never going to put any pressure on me. If she steps just up to the hip line, there's no danger of me getting my guard pass from here, okay? But if you contrast this, and she doesn't even have a grip on the leg, she just throws the legs by and lets go, but she steps past my hip line, now there's a real danger of me getting past. So I have to really react to recover from here, okay? So her first thing is always going to be to create movement and angle, okay? She needs an angular advantage where she can outflank me to either side, okay? As she goes to move to outflank me, okay, now her next goal is, okay, she's past the legs, how can I pass the guard? You have to distinguish, again, between passing to mount, side control, usually she'll pass the side control from here, versus passing to north-south. If someone is perpendicular to you, she's side on, you know she's passing to side control, okay? This means that your partner, in order to pass your guard, absolutely has to control your head and shoulders. She has to make a cranial shift where she goes from passing the legs and she shifts to controlling the head, okay? There's no other way around this. If she does not control your head, if she's perpendicular to you, passing to side control, and she does not control your head, there's no way that she can pass your guard, okay? And by pass your guard, I mean get to a situation where she's past your legs and she can start to attack you, okay? When she goes to drop down, if she can control my head and shoulders, she can pass me. If she cannot do this, there's no way that she can physically ever pass my guard. It's impossible. I can always bring legs back inside. Okay, you have to understand this. Contrast that with her passing to north-south. This is completely different now. Now she doesn't have to control my head. All right, so she's a completely different set of goals from here. All right, her goals now don't rely on controlling my head and shoulders. They rely on getting her shoulders and collarbones inside my knee and elbow, okay? If she cannot do that, she will never pass my guard. If she can do that, she will always pass my guard, okay? You have to understand this. When you start thinking about it like this, and you have different goals for your partner passing to side control versus your partner passing to north-south, everything becomes much more simple, okay? My goals, okay, so her goals are to outflank me, she's passing to side control or mount, control my head, and close distance between her chest and my chest, so she can steal the inside real estate and win the battle for upper body inside position. If she passes to north-south, then her goal is to get her shoulders inside my elbows and knees, so she can dominate the upper body inside real estate and pass to a high tripod in north-south, okay? Another one of her goals, which isn't anything to do with technique, just tactically, is to constantly put side-to-side pressure on me to stay in an offensive cycle, okay? So she throws to one side, I recover, she throws to the other side, I recover, she throws to the other side, I recover, and you just find yourself in a defensive cycle where you're just getting thrown side to side and your partner's constantly camping on your J point, the jeopardy point, okay? Where you're in real jeopardy of getting past. The J point is your hip line. If your partner steps past your hip line, now you're in real jeopardy of getting your guard passed. All right, so I'm starting to introduce this new idea of J spot or J point camping, okay? Where your partner essentially camps out on the J point, all right? Meaning that you're constantly in a situation where you're flanked and you're getting exhausted because you constantly have to pull your knees up to your chest, okay? And you saw us, again, recently in my match with Roberto, you saw like 6 or 7 minutes in, he was just 100% exhausted, and no one knows why, because his cardio is so good. It's because I was constantly camping in this, on the spot at which he was in jeopardy of getting his guard passed. I was constantly outflanking him, and it's very, very exhausting for the bottom guy, okay? So just as far as tactics go, if she can camp on that J spot, it's going to be very difficult for me to then enter into any offensive cycles. Okay, my goals are to create constant Kazushi and keep her in front of me at all costs. Okay, now obviously we're looking at retention, so that's not going to be possible. If she outflanks me, okay, now my goals are to keep the upper body inside position at all costs. I know if she cannot control my head and shoulders, she can't pass me. And if she can't get her shoulders inside my knees and elbows and separate the space, she cannot pass me, okay? So I have to first look to always maintain the upper body inside position.
Second, find ways to put my partner back in front of me. Okay? If she's camping out past my hip line, I'm going to be losing this battle every single time. So my whole thing is, first, don't get passed initially by keeping the upper body inside position, and then finding ways to use various posts and frames to put my partner back in front of me and go right into a secondary attack. Where the first time she goes into a toreando, I recover and then I counter so that I can start my own offensive cycle and I can put her in a defensive cycle. This is super, super important. What I don't want is her just going side to side. So she goes to throw my legs by, she goes to start passing me, and now from here I put her back in front of me, and now I immediately tie her up. So as she goes to reset and start moving in front of me, I go to invert underneath her, and I start my offensive cycle. Where I tie up one leg and she goes to back step and reset. No, just step backwards. Goes to reset, and now we come in here and we start going into our attacks and off balancing our partner and going into all of our follow-up attacks where we can start to counter. Okay? So I'm looking to make sure I can keep her in front of me the best I can. If she outflanks me, I have to maintain the upper body inside position, put her back in front of me, and follow up with a counter attack so you can start your own offensive cycle. All right, so we've talked a lot already. Let's just simplify this and just talk about what should I be asking myself when I'm retaining guard, when someone's moving a million miles an hour from side to side, jumping around me, trying to get past my guard. What am I thinking when I'm down there? All right. Very simply, when she goes to start moving past my legs, how can I keep my feet and my knees pointing towards her? Okay. What she wants is to outflank me, okay, and in turn my feet and knees will point away from her so she can go in and pass me. All right, so if I could just constantly think about keeping my feet and my knees to point towards her, everything will become much easier. When she goes to outflank me, if I can point my feet towards her, she can't pass me. When she goes to outflank me, if the feet can't point towards her, I can point the knees towards her, like so. So, for example, she controls my ankles, and I feel like she goes to outflank me. I feel like I can't point my feet towards her. I can point my knees towards her. Okay? And if I feel like she goes to outflank me, and I can't point my knees towards her because she pushes my knees away, I can come through, and I can point my feet towards her. Okay? So I'm always looking to point my feet and my knees towards my partner. Okay? If you can just think about that, everything becomes much easier. Right? In addition, when she goes to outflank me, I'm thinking, how can I point my feet and my knees towards my partner and move to a position where I can put myself back in front of her, or we're parallel? All right. The further she moves perpendicular or parallel in the opposite direction to north-south in the other extreme, the easier it's going to be for her to pass me. Okay. So I'm just thinking about how can I keep my feet and my knees pointing towards her, and how can I find ways to put myself back in front of her? And then, of course, follow up with some other kind of attack where we can go into counter offense. All right? If you can just keep these two things in mind, how can I, go ahead, as she goes to start passing me, how can I keep my feet and or my knees pointing towards her? And how can I find ways to put her back in front of me? If you can keep doing this consistently while also going to get the counterattacks when you move into your offensive cycle, everything will become much easier. All right? If you notice, if she just does a 10-second burst where she goes to pass my guard, notice everything is putting the feet and knees back in front and putting these in between, feet and knees in between us, and putting her back in front of me. All right? If you just think about this simple idea and you have the techniques and the knowledge to frame properly as you're doing this and counterattack, everything becomes much easier. So she goes to toreando for 10 seconds. Notice the whole time I'm just pointing my feet or my knees towards her. I'm constantly putting her back in front of me. And I'm looking to, then again, obviously follow up with attacks so I can start my own offensive cycle. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the bridge between loose and tight passing throughout this instructional so far. All right, this is by far the most apparent example of that. All right, when we talk about loose passing, your partner's trying to outflank you. Your partner trying to get the feet and the knees to point away from you. And when your partner's tight passing, they're looking to come down and control the head and shoulders. Okay, this is the most apparent
example, because your partner's in front of you, and initially she's just trying to come in. She's loose passing. She's trying to outflank you. She's trying to get past the hip line, and she's trying to move into a situation like so. There's going to be a pivotal point where your partner moves from passing the legs to passing your guard. Okay, and that is the cue in your head where your goals now have to change. Okay, from putting my partner back in front of me and pointing my feet and my knees towards my partner, to now denying my partner control of my head so my legs and my feet can come back inside. Okay, so you have to understand that when your partner goes to pass you, she's standing up and away from me now, she's still loose passing. Okay, so my whole thing is, okay, how can I frame, how can I post, how can I put her back in front of me? There's going to be a key pivotal point here where the closer she gets to you, your goal now changes to, okay, my feet and my knees aren't able to point towards my partner just yet. So now my goal changes to, okay, I have to deny my partner the ability to control my head and shoulders. Okay, so you see your goals are changing very quickly here. It's all happening very fast. So I'm thinking about one thing when she's loose passing and another thing when she's tight passing. So the second she comes down, I'm not thinking about high-legging over, bringing my knees back in front, or posting on her shins anymore. I'm thinking about stopping her from controlling my head. So now she goes to start passing me from here. I deny the head control, and now I bring my feet and my knees back in front, and now we can start playing a game from here. Okay, but you see now that your goals are changing very quickly, and when she's moving side to side, she's moving north-south, she's moving in all the different directions. You're both dripping very quickly. This gets very confusing. Okay, but if you just keep the goal in mind that when she's loose passing, I have one set of goals, and when she's tight passing, I have another set of goals. Okay, and when she starts to initially loose pass, I'm looking at my loose passing goals, and when she goes to start tight passing, now my whole thing is I have to deny her control of the head. All right, so your goals are changing here, and you're in a very dynamic and fast-moving situation, and you have to understand that your partner is moving very quickly from one type of passing to another type of passing. And your goals and their goals are changing very quickly as your partner moves side to side, back and forth, up and down. All right, so let's look in depth now at what kind of frames we can use. All right, now, I didn't go over this before because the frames that we're using from each one of these positions, there were relatively static positions, and there were specific frames you had to use. Like when we had an inside foot straight hamstring or cross hamstring, it's always a cross shoulder post. All right. When you have someone crushing you from an outside ashigarami, you always palm your hands in a very specific way, and these are the grips you have to use to escape this specific position. Okay. But when someone's hitting toreandos and moving side to side, there's tons of grips that they can use, and they're changing their hand placement, they're changing their foot placement, their knee placement. Everything's changing very fast. Okay? Nothing's in the same spot for more than a half a second at a time. All right, so you have to understand that there's three major types of framing that you're going to be looking at, and this will be what frame you use will be completely contingent upon the distance between your partner and yourself. Okay, specifically their head. The further their head is from yours, if their head's far away from you, we use one type of framing. If they're in a mid-level range where they're not very close, but they're not very far, we use a second type of framing. And if they're very close, we use a third type of framing. Okay, and we can use these in combination with each other depending on where my partner's arms, hands, and head are. So, for example, if my partner's passing me and she's far away, the first type of framing we have when she goes to toreando initially is forehand framing. Okay, where my palm points away from me, we have extended arms. All right, these can post anywhere in your partner's body. We can go with a straight frame like so with a forehand frame. We can post here. We can post it inside your partner's shoulder. We can post on your partner's shin like we did before. We can post all of your partner's body with an extended arm and a forehand frame. We can also use cross frames where a partner goes to come in and start controlling me. Maybe I have a forehand frame here. Maybe I have a forehand frame here. So my partner goes to control my head, starts to drop down, and starts to go move her legs. But I can control my partner with two forehand frames like so. Okay, so we can use straight frames and we can use cross frames. Okay. This is when our partner's far out and away from us. We use forehand frames with extended arms. Now, the second type of framing is forearm framing. Okay, so we have forehand framing and forearm framing. So where our partner goes to come in close to us and she drops down to her knees, for example, and goes to pass me, now I can't extend my hand anymore because my partner's too close. So I use different forms of forearm framing to stop my partner from moving closer to me. Okay, in the inside bicep tie is an example of a forearm framing. A cross shoulder post is an example of a forearm framing. Okay, because I'm framing with my forearms. Okay, versus just my hand. So we use forearm framing from here. My partner goes to pass me into side control. We have a forearm frame across the hips. Okay, we have a forearm frame inside the bicep. All right, so when my partner moves to this middle ground here, we use forearm framing. So if her head's far away, we use forehand framing, both straight and cross. And when she moves close to me, we use forearm framing, both straight and cross, with cross shoulder posts. Okay. The third type of framing is backhand framing. Okay. This kind of framing will be used when your partner is very close to you. Okay, when she's basically almost past. All right. So she gets into a situation where she's so close she controls my head, and now I'm in a situation where the back of my hand is framing on my partner. So now, as she goes to start coming in close to me, I can start using that finger walk that we used before, and I gave introductions to all these different frames as we were going through, and now we're kind of collecting everything, and we're going to use them. We're going to unify using all of them when our partner is changing positions very quickly. So as she goes to start cross-facing me heavily from here, I use a backhand frame to start walking through and then pummeling hands inside. Okay, and you can use these for pin escapes as well. If my partner's in side control and I want to start escaping, I have backhand frames here. And from here we start moving, and now we start moving to forearm frames, and then my partner moves away and I move to forehand frames. Okay, so there's three different types of framing you'll use, and which type of framing you use will be completely contingent upon your partner's head position relative to yours. If she's far away and she just goes to hit a tornado, we use forehand framing. Here, 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 here. If she gets closer to me and she drops down, we use forearm framing. Okay, here, here, here. If she's so close to me that I can't use forehand or forearm framing, we use backhanded framing. So now when she goes to get control of me, it's a difficult thing. Okay, we can use these in combination. We can use a backhand frame with a forearm frame. Okay, because now she's not so close to me where I can't use a forearm frame, but she's close enough where I can also use a backhand frame. So there are situations where she's not really in the middle ground, but she's not connected to me, where we can use a combination of these two. And then from here, we can move away. We can use forearm frames. She goes to back away. She goes to pass again, and then we use forehand frames. Okay? So there's three major types of framing that you'll be using. All right? I've shown you a little bit. We've been using these the entire time, but those are from very specific positions. Okay? Now it's going to be your job when your partner goes to toreando to be able to use these in succession with one another, dependent upon how close your partner's head is to you. So you can't just use one or the other. Okay? You have to use all three in very different ways as your partner moves sporadically from side to side. So what this will look like, and notice the difference between the frames. As she goes to pass me, go ahead. Okay, so the closer she gets, my frames have to change. Okay, I cannot stress how important this idea is. Okay, you have to be able to recognize what frames you're supposed to be using, what and when. Okay, and that's always going to be completely contingent upon your partner's head position relative to your own. The further they are away, the more extension of your arms. The closer they are, the closer your hands move towards you. You go from forehand to forearm to backhand when they're closest. So we're going to look now at a scissor guard. All right, when I have someone in front of me, one of the absolute best ways to stop my partner from toreandoing side to side and continuing an offensive cycle is by moving into a scissor guard. Okay, what is a scissor guard? All right, when my partner starts to move in one direction, like so, okay, if I just bring my knees back in front of my partner, I use forehand post, for example, to put myself back in front of my partner, and she Toriano's back in the opposite direction, all right, there's no reason why she can't just keep moving side to side, all right? So I want to start to introduce a scissor guard when I go to recover. So as she goes to Toriano to one side, I want to look to start framing and bringing my leg over into a situation where now I can scissor my partner's body between my two legs, all right? This puts a wedge on either side of her hips. So when she goes to run back and Toriano to the other side, I can always follow my partner. When she goes to run this way, I can follow my partner. And this gives me time now to grab ankles, bring everything back in front, and now I can entangle my partner's legs, create a connection, keep this person in front of me, and create Kazushi. Okay? So as my partner goes to start running around and Toriano to either side, I'm going to look to start moving into situations where I can connect a foot to a hip and then high leg and connect a second foot to a hip like so. So now she goes to continue to Toriano to the other side. She can't. And this gives me time now to come in and start controlling my partner. Same thing north-south. Okay? If she goes to Toriano, she goes north-south. I'm looking always to move into a situation where I can strip grips and move into some kind of scissor. Okay, where I have one foot on either side of my partner's body, whether it be here, like so. So now when she goes to move, it's difficult, or like so. So now when she goes to move, it's difficult. And all I need is to get one foot on either side of my partner's body for a small amount of time until I can tie up an ankle and limit movement through the contact on my partner's legs. Okay, so she goes to throw to the side. I come through and I put a leg over. Okay, I can also, if she goes to Toriano, if I can get one foot to this, if I can get a foot out to this side of the hip, and then I can come in here, now I can also stop her. All right, so when she goes to throw my legs to this side and Toriano, it's difficult. Okay, if she goes north-south and she goes to start passing me, I bring legs back in front, and then from here, we can put our partner back in front of us. She goes to start throwing legs by, she goes north-south. We can come in, we can always get one leg either side of my partner's hips. Okay? I can start moving into situations where from here, I can put her back in front of me, and the entire time, when she goes to Toriano and throw side to side, she can't. If I just have my knees here and I go to recover, now she can just throw my legs side to side, she can move to either side and start to give me issues. But when I start scissoring my partner's body between my two legs, now from here, we can recover and put her back in front of me. We can recover and put her back in front of me. We can recover and put her back in front of me. And now we can go into counterattacks. Okay? So when your partner's Toriano side to side, a scissor guard is a fantastic option to stop your partner in their tracks when they try an initial Toriano. Okay? So they Toriano to one side, and instead of moving back to the other side and staying in their offensive cycle, you tie them up, stop or limit their movement with the scissor guard, and then you can continue your offense. All right, now let's talk about a side guard. Okay, what is a side guard? This is one of the most important things you need to know as far as retaining guard. Okay, because there's going to be multiple times during any given match where your partner gets past your legs and outflanks you. Okay. And most people always come forward and they're overzealous to chase the head and the shoulders. Okay? If my partner can get to a position where she's outflanked me, she's down on her knees, and now she can get control of my head and shoulders, she's going to pass. What she needs in order to pass is a separation between my knee and my elbow. If she can create separation between my knee and my elbow and put her body between that space, she can pass me. If she can never separate my knee and my elbow, like so, it's physically impossible for her to pass me. So as she goes to come onto me and looks to try to start passing, this knee-elbow connection is going to stop her from passing me. Okay, so a side guard is a knee-elbow connection on the side your partner's trying to pass that forms a V shape with your shin and your forearm. So your partner's body sits in between this V, like so. If your partner can make space between the knee and the elbow, it's going to be very easy or easier for them to pass. Okay, so I go side guard like so, and I keep the inside position with my frames. Because she's close to me, we'll be using cross and straight forearm frames. So we have an inside bicep tie like so. We have a cross shoulder post. When she goes to start passing me from here, she can never fight to the inside position. That's why it's so common when people go to pass you, they have a hand in the hip, and where does the other hand go? On the knee. They start pulling the knee back down in this direction. Why? To create separation from the knee and the elbow. So whenever your partner goes to flank you, and she starts toreando, as she goes to drop down towards me, we always go in the knee-elbow connection. I can't have a knee-elbow connection and have her push my hips in this direction and now my knees and feet point away from her. This is useless. She's going to pass me or take my back from here. So I make sure that my knee and elbow join together like so, but I face my knee towards my partner. So as she goes to come down onto me, my knee points towards my partner. We have all the upper body and the lower body inside position. And now when she goes to pass, it's the easiest thing in the world to regard and go into my follow-up attacks. Okay? Whenever my partner's close to passing, we need to put a side guard into place. Okay? So let's say my partner has a cross face and an underhook, for example, and she's in a half guard. If my partner goes to pass me from here, and I feel like I'm going to get beat, she's going to pass my legs, what do? We move to a side guard. So she goes to knee slide through, and as she goes to pass me, I get my knee and my elbow connected. Now, yes, she has full control of my upper body. She dominates all the inside real estate. Once she goes to actually pass me from here, her hands are occupied. Okay? The second her hands open, to try to start moving to if her hands don't open, and she goes to pass me from here, she can never do it. The only way she can pass me is by separating her hands and bringing her attention down to this side guard by either lifting my arm, by underhooking my arm, by pushing my knee down, by finding a way to create some kind of disconnection between my elbow and my knee. But the second she goes to do that, she relinquishes the upper body inside position. So when she goes to address my hand in my knee position, go ahead. Now I bring it hand inside. And now when she goes to start moving around from here, I can fight back to the inside position via the side guard and bring my legs and feet back inside. Okay? So one of your key elements to maintaining a guard when your partner outflanks you is having an effective side guard where you can recover, get back to the inside position, and then go into your counter offense. All right, so now let's look at how we can pommel legs initially to keep someone in front of us. What we can't have is someone just standing in front of us, hands on my legs, and then from here she just throws my legs by. Okay. So what I want is I want it to make it hard for my opponent to start accessing my legs. Okay. I cannot have her just have two hands on my shins and she just goes in and she pushes my legs to the side. So what I do is I always split my legs. I always have one leg down and one leg up. So when she goes to grab my legs, she goes to put two hands on my shins. She's always intercepted with one leg, with 1 foot of the bicep. So now when she goes to toreando, she has much less pushing power. And when she goes to outflank me in a given direction, my leg gets in the way. Okay. In addition, because my leg's extended, when she goes to throw by, I can bring the leg down, and as she goes to throw, her legs get caught up and entangled, and I can start grabbing her legs. Okay. So I split the legs like so, and as she goes to engage, she gets interfered. My leg interferes with her initial grip. Okay. Now I know which way she has to go. If she goes in this direction, tries to toreando, I can follow and entangle the legs. So I know that now she's just going to start pushing this leg out to the side and start walking in this direction. At least I know now where she's going. Okay. So the first thing is I always come in and I split my legs like so. Now as she goes to make grips, I'm pommeling my legs the whole time. Okay. Whether it be out in this direction and around, or whether it be in to the biceps. Okay. I can never have her making contact with my legs and me not making contact with her arms. Okay. So as she goes to come in, I split the legs, and now it's just a pommeling battle. I never want her to have control of both of my legs for any amount of time. So the second she goes to grab my legs, we're always here and we're pommeling. And you notice I always have 1 foot up and 1 foot down. So as she wants to start her initial toreando, it's hard for her to even get control of my legs. Okay, I'm not just randomly shaking my legs back and forth like this, like you see all the time. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm trying to get feet inside of her biceps. Okay, to eventually get to her ankles. Eventually, what I want is to get control of an ankle so I can control her and at least limit movement to some degree so she can't immediately outflank me. All right, so I come in and as she goes to start her Toreando passing, she goes to start trying to outflank me. I'm pommeling legs the whole time. And then as she goes to outflank me, see, now I can get to an ankle. Now we can start to go up into situations where we can tie our partner up. Okay, so we split the legs and we go inside the biceps. As she goes to start moving and pommeling, I'm pommeling my legs as well. Now we can get control of the ankles eventually. Okay, so we keep her in front of us. We allow her to flank, but never past my hip line. Okay, so she can flank slightly. She goes to Toreando. She can't get quite past my hip line because of my leg position, but I can access her feet now. Where now I can tie my partner up and start to go into counter offense. Okay? In a situation where you see your partner's not interested in taking a 2-on-1 or a 1-on-1, where she has one hand per leg, like so, and instead she feels like this guy's pommeling his legs too well, let me go with a 2-on-1, where she grabs like so. Okay, in any various ways. She can go here, she can go to ankle, she can go inside, outside. However she makes a 2-on-1, this is an issue for me. Because now I can pommel one leg, but this leg's hard for me to do anything with. Now if she walks this way, she drag me this way and throw back the other way. Walk this way. And now whip me by, and now she can outflank me. Okay? So we have an issue now of where we're starting to pommel, right? She feels like she tries to get one-on-1, one hand for each leg, and she feels like it's a hard thing to do. So she goes 2-on-1. If I stay here and I just try to rip my leg out, she just walks, and she can hit a variety of attempts here, or she can end up in a flank. So whenever I see this, and she goes 2-on-1, I use my second foot to strip the 2-on-1 grip. Okay? The way that I do this is by taking my foot to my partner's wrist, like so. So the second I come in here, I just push my left foot down and I pull my right knee in towards my chest. So when she goes to hold on tight, I strip the grip and now I'm ready to repommel. When she goes to grab me, we come in here. If I just do this, I'm never going to be able to strip her grip. So we come in, we go 1, 2, and we strip. If she grabs in a different configuration, we go to the wrist, we strip. She goes to a different configuration, we go to the wrist, and we strip. What we're essentially doing is we're clearing a 2-on-1 and forcing her into a 1-on-1. Okay? A 2-on-1 is incredibly difficult to clear. A 1-on-1, just one hand. A 1-on-1 is incredibly easy to clear. That's why when she has one hand per leg, it's pretty easy for me to pummel my legs inside. But if she's a 2-on-1, now the weakness of each grip is reinforced by the strength of the other. So it's impossible for me to get my leg free. But when I strip one hand off, now she has a 1-on-1 grip. And now from here, it's easy to break and separate. Okay? So if she has one hand per leg, I'm pommeling legs. Okay? So when she comes in, I split the legs. I like to go inside her biceps until she goes to throw by. Stay 1-on-1. As she goes to throw by, and I can eventually get to an ankle. So I have to tie her up, keep her in front of me, limit movement by making points of contact, just as we spoke about in our loose passing goals in the beginning. If I find she goes 2-on-1, now it's different. Now I'm not going to be able to start pommeling legs from here. So I use sole of the foot to her wrist, I strip, and now she has a 1-on-1. Now I repommel, and I'm free. Okay, so you have to be able to change your reactions based on what grip she's making. If she goes 1-on-1, I use a pommeling method. If she uses 2-on-1, I use a strip and pommel method. Okay, what this will look like is she goes in, she's going to switch now for 10 seconds or so between 1-on-1 and 2-on-1s, and I have to adjust accordingly until I can get to an ankle. Now we're ready to counterattack. Okay? So you can never let your partner dominate the grip fighting exchanges, put hands on you, and then immediately just outflank you right away. Okay? So he's pommeling legs to get to an ankle.
All right, let's look at now how we looked at leg pommeling. Let's look at how we can use high legs to avoid being flanked. Okay, now we looked at a glimpse of this in the scissor guard introduction. All right, as my partner goes to outflank me, so I'm pommeling legs, but for whatever reason, she manages to outflank me before I can get to an ankle. Whenever I see this, I'm always going to look for a high leg methods to come up and over. Now again, there's so many grips that my partner can be using from here. She can be in my ankles, she can be on my hip. There's so many different variations of where her body could be versus what my grips can be, okay? But if I can get my foot up and over and across her center line, or at least to her center line, I'm going to be in good shape from here. Okay, her whole thing is to keep my foot out and away, either with V grips, so I can't high leg, or with a strong inside hip hand positioning. And now as I go to high leg, it makes it difficult for me to get my leg up and over, okay? So she wants to keep my leg outside of her hip. I want my foot to come through towards her center line. All right. So as she goes to hit an initial toreando, I'm just going to look to take my leg up and over. And now I look to either post across to my partner's hip or post my partner's body so I can bring my second foot across, put my feet back on the hips, and then put her back in front of me. Okay, so from any basic toreando, she goes to hit an initial toreando. I'm just going to look to take my foot around and post anywhere in my partner's body to bring my feet back across and put her back in front of me. Okay? If she goes in, she goes toreando and she goes to the hip this time, I'm going to look to bring my leg through, and now I steal the inside position. Okay? Essentially what I'm doing is I'm stealing the inside position from her. Right now she has a hand inside my hip. I take a foot inside her bicep. And now I take a knee inside the arm, and now I steal the inside position. Okay, right now, she comes in, she steals the inside hand position. So her thumb and hand are inside of my ankle. So I have to strip and steal the inside position. And now from here, we put her back in front of me. Okay, so we use high leg methods to come through back to the inside position, moving towards my partner's center line, and then posting in various positions of my partner's body to bring my second leg through, okay? So ultimately, I want her back in front of me. She goes to toreando. I hit an initial high leg. I post here, I post here, I post here. Anything that can give me the ability to move my body back in front of my partner, okay? Or, as she goes to toreando, instead of just putting myself back in front and giving her the option to move across to the opposite side, as she goes to toreando, if I just put myself back in front, she goes opposite side now, and starts to toreando and outflank me on the opposite side. So of course I have the option, as she goes to move through toreando, to start moving into a situation where I high leg into a scissor guard. Where now, as she goes to flank me on the opposite side, I have a connection. I can get to ankles, and we can go into attacks from here. Okay? So two great options. If possible, move into a scissor guard, but it won't always be possible. Okay? A lot of times I high leg over and she's already moving back to the other side. But if any time I can scissor and put shoelaces and feet on the outside of my partner's hips, that's what I'm looking for, okay? And every time she goes to toreando, I'm always looking to take my leg and bring it up and over to steal the inside position, okay? If she goes side to side, until I can eventually get to an ankle, put her back in front of me, and win this exchange, okay? So using high legs to put my partner back in front of me, stealing the inside position, and if possible, getting to a scissor guard to limit movement, keep the person in front of you, and create constant kazushi. All right, so let's talk about, we get outflanked, how can we use forehand framing my partners at distance to recover and go into attacks? All right, like we've talked about, there's tons of different things that we both can do from here. All right, but let's just talk about what kind of framing we can do on our partner's upper body, the lower body, and of course we're looking to high leg over, get feet back in front, or just get feet back in front in any way that we can, and put her back in front of me and make points of contact. So we're in a position where she goes to outflank me, like so. Okay, her biggest things from here are going to be to get my knees away from my elbow and to point my knees away from her. Okay, once she can establish that, then she has to start making gains to move her head towards mine and establish upper body inside position. All right, so the first thing she's been looking at is how can I get the knees away from the chest and knees and feet to point away from me.
Okay? So when she's at distance, my whole thing is to keep her at distance by making sure that she can't put stress on this knee position. Okay? So my entire goal will be to clear this hand off of my near knee. Okay? So as she comes in, I can do this in one of two ways. All right, number one, I can use a forehand post inside my partner's bicep with a V grip like so. So as she goes to push my knee down and away, I strip the grip off. And now from here, we can bring this foot through, catch my partner's hip, and put myself back in front. Okay? I can use a forehand grip where I grab my partner's wrist and I strip it off with the wrist. We can do it like that as well. I can use a forehand grip where I go to my partner's tricep. If I feel like my partner's pushing my knee too far away, now you see I can't get inside the bicep to strip the grip off, I can push my partner's tricep down and push her hand further than she wanted, so now the hand's across the center line. So when she goes to start making access to go to my head now, this space is my foot to come across. The disadvantage of using a forehand grip on this side is that you don't have any free hands to post in your partner's lower body. Okay? So it's going to be faster for you to just reach up from here than coming across and reaching. But if you come with a straight grip here, it's going to be hard to access V grips in your partner's ankles because you don't have a free hand to do that now. All right? So whenever, in general, when I'm facing towards my partner, my knees are facing relatively towards my partner, I usually use straight grips like so. If I'm facing towards my partner, I usually use cross grips like so. Okay? When I start to get my knees pointing away from my partner, like so, now it's going to be difficult to use a cross grip because my opposite shoulder's on the floor. So instead, I use a straight forehand grip, and then from here we can bring our legs through and around. So my partner outflanks me, and we use posts to clear the grips on my knee. Okay? I'm always looking to clear her hand off of my knee in one way or another, like so. If I use a cross grip, now I have the access and the luxury of using my near hand to post my partner's shins. And I can use this as a post to push myself back in front of my partner. Whereas if my partner goes to outflank me, then we come in here. Now I need to start using posts of my feet on my partner to bring myself back in front of her. It's hard for me from here, as she goes to walk around, to put myself back in front of my partner. She always stays flanked on me. If I have a cross grip and a post of my partner's shin, when she goes to follow me from here, I can always put myself back in front. Whereas when she goes to outflank me, they go with the straight grip like so. Now I have to use posts of my feet to move my body. Put her back in front of me. Okay, so we use a combination of forehand straight grips and forehand cross grips. Here, anywhere in our partner that can make space and not allow her to push my knee down and away from her and to close distance between her chest and my chest. Okay? So I'm always looking to use a variety of grips like so. So as my knees point towards her, she goes to outflank me, I'm moving here. I'm playing here. She goes to outflank me, my knees point towards her. We can use near grips as well. My knees start to point away from her. Now, cross grips don't make sense. So we use forehand grips instead. And now from here, we can high leg over, put my partner back in front of me, and start to go into counter offense. So as she goes to pass, as she moves spontaneously, we're always getting to ankles the whole time. So we use these grips to make sure my partner can never stay on my knees, pushing my knees down and away from me and away from her. She wants to create separation between my knee and my elbow by pushing my knee away from my chest and then away from her. If she can do that, then she can drop down, get control of my head, and start to pass from there. All right, so the second I feel her outflank me and she's still at distance, I have to address that knee and that grip on the knee. All right.
Once I address the grip of the knee, then I have to start getting my legs back in front. If she goes to move to a flank, I go knee first, okay? Now I look to put my legs back in front. If I see my partner has a V grip on my opposite ankle, for example, and I feel like I can't bring my legs back in front, then guess what? I have to start stripping this grip. So I can move my leg out and around. Now she has no control over my legs. Now I can start to bring my legs back in front, like so. All right? So our first concern is always this knee. My first concern is always this knee. Now I look to put my legs back in front. My secondary concern is this ankle. If she has control of this ankle, I gotta put my legs back in front and she keeps a straight arm, it's gonna be difficult from here. Okay? I can reach across like so, but there's no reason why she can't just re-grab and now I'm getting beat again from here. Whereas if I have two legs in front, now when she goes to Toreando, I can start moving into scissor situations or bringing my feet back inside. Okay? So I always worry about the knee first. If I have to, the second ankle, the far ankle for her. And then I'm looking to bring my feet back inside and, of course, keep that knee-elbow connection. The further my knee drifts from my chest and the further my knees and feet point away from her, the easier for her it's going to be. So we use multiple grips to monitor my partner's upper body and stop her from making consistent grips of my knee. And we can use various grips with cross posts or straight posts to start posting my partner's shins, posting my partner's biceps, grabbing my partner's wrist, using various grips and frames to put myself back in front of my partner and go into counterattacks. So let's move on now to forearm framing, okay? Whenever my partner goes to start outflanking me, this time she's gonna go to this side, okay? Goes to start outflanking me and pushes my knee far enough away from my chest where she feels like she can drop down now to her knees, and start to come in and get top, head, and arm. Okay, like so. So there's going to be a critical moment where your partner realizes, okay, I have a disconnect between the knee and the elbow, so now it's time to go from passing the legs, making a cranial shift up to the head, and controlling the head and shoulders. Okay? There's going to be a key moment when this happens. So right now, she goes to pass. I'm fighting. I'm playing here. I'm using forehand grips. And now I feel like, okay, there's a little bit of space. And she goes to drop down. And now if I stay with the forehand grips, you see what's going to happen here. My elbows are exposed far out from my body. She can come inside my hands. She can drive forward. And now I'm getting beat from here. So there has to be a change in gripping and framing from here. As she goes to outflank me, I feel like she's going to start dropping down. From here, I immediately go from a forehand to a forearm with a cross shoulder post. And now the whole thing is I avoid control of my head and shoulders. So she's on my legs now. Her grips go from my legs up to my head and shoulders. I stop this. Okay? Now, when she goes to drive forwards into me, I have the upper body inside position. All I need to do now is get back to a side guard. So right now you see my knee's in a position where I can't move in like so. So I'm always going to look to shrimp out and away from my partner using my right leg and invert my left knee. Okay? If I go to bring my left knee inside and my knee stays higher than the height of my foot, I will always run into the pocket of my partner's hip. Okay? If I try to bring my knee inside, if I'm here, you see my knee is lower than my knee is higher than the height of my foot, I always run to the pocket of my partner's hip. So instead, I invert the right knee and I make sure that my foot is higher than the level of my knee. Like so. So now when I'm going to bring my knee inside, my knee and my elbow connect. Now I have this V shape, I have a side guard, and I'm safe. When she goes to continue to press forward, she's looking to move towards the head now, the head's not available. And now it's a relatively easy thing for me to come in, to put any kind of scissor guard, any kind of situation where now I can start my counter offense. Okay? So she moves from passing the legs, with grips in the legs, to, okay, now there's space, I can drop down and chase the head. All right? Everyone's goals are changing here. She moves from passing the legs first to controlling the head and shoulders second to actually pass my guard. I'm looking to strip grips from the knee and the ankle to put her back in front of me
Then, as she goes to start dropping down, now I'm like, okay, I have to stop her from controlling my head. So both of our goals are changing from here. She goes to outflank me from this position. I'm fighting hands, Maybe she repommels that she beats me. Whenever I see this, I'm framing on hands. She goes to drop down to her knees. The second I see her coming down, I go forearm with a cross shoulder and forearm with an inside bicep. Now she goes to start chasing me from here. I just move my hips out and away so I can invert my left knee and bring knee to elbow, like so. She can do anything she wants now. When she goes to pressure forwards into me, no matter how big or how strong she is, it's going to be useless. We'll be able to go into all of our follow-ups from here. All right, so she goes to throw my legs by quickly. I'm going to start to look to fight. And the second she goes to drop down, it has to be an instinct where hardwired into your brain, where your hands come inside and start moving from a forehand to a forearm framing. So she goes to shoot by, we're pummeling from here, and immediately we come in. Okay? If we can get a knee elbow connection before she drops down, this is even better, because now we're in side guard ready to go. Worst case scenario is she beats you, and now you have to shrimp and bring the knee back inside. Okay? And now, once we're back inside, it's pretty easy for us to start clearing everything and bringing our feet and knees back to the inside position and not allowing my partner to control my head. Okay? That's forearm framing. When you feel like the forehand framing isn't working, your partner's starting to close the distance. She drops down to her knees and creates space between your knee and your elbow. We move to a forearm framing to deny her head control, and then we can bring everything back inside at a later time when the knees come back in, the feet come back in, and we go into counter offense. All right, so let's talk about late stage recoveries. Our opponent gets so close to us where forearm framing isn't working. And most of the time we use backhand framing when our partner has locked hands. Okay, so in a situation where my partner outflanks me and gets in like so, if she locks her hands from here, okay, usually it's in a situation where the forearm framing isn't going to be successful. Okay, if I have everything inside and I have my elbow inside and we're like so, and she locks her hands, okay, she's just an idiot from here because there's no way she can control me because I have all the inside position. So as she goes to settle into side control, I can just separate her hands and off balance her. All right, but normally, as she goes to start moving in towards me, she gets an underhook with at least my elbow and she locks her hands, and you have someone who's real strong, where now you feel like you're framing and trying to push yourself away from here, but you just feel like you absolutely can't do it. Okay? Whenever I see this, I'm immediately going to look to start going and using a combination of forearm framing and backhand framing, okay? Where as she goes to start settling up into side control, I just take my own hand and I move it up to my head. She's naturally going to be moving towards my head in most cases. Okay, so as she goes to move towards my head, I use the inside thumb post with the cross shoulder with my right hand here to start guiding my partner up and over my head so I can hide my jaw from the cross face. So as she goes to start moving towards my head and passing me, I take my hand up like so, okay? Now, from here, what I can't have is a situation where I let her start walking back towards my hips and covering, and now I get beat. So the second I see her going to drop down and start to pin me from here, I immediately hide my jaw from the cross face. Now my head's underneath my partner's chest rather than stuck underneath the cross face. Okay? Now, I again put my knee in the pocket of my partner's hip, and I look to invert it. Now I just shrimp away, and I connect my knee and my elbow. When she goes to start driving forward from here, she can't. When she goes to control my head from here, I just walk my fingers up and I just pommel my head out, and the crossface slips out. And now it's very easy to bring my hands back inside. She'll naturally unlock her hands because she has no more control of me. And now I can go back to forearm framing because there's space that I have between myself and my partner. Okay, so whenever I feel my partner drops down, she gets into a situation where forearm framing is not working, usually because my partner locks her hands, okay? Or maybe she doesn't even lock her hands. Maybe she has a hand on the floor here, and she's a strong collar tie, and she's pulling me in like this, right? Forearm framing is not going to work from here. I'm in the wrong position. So instead, I go backhand frame with the cross forearm frame, okay? Now, what's going to actually get me out of this position is going to be this backhand frame like so, okay? Where I can walk her body up and get my head underneath the cross face. So as she goes to start passing me, I just walk, and I guide her body up, and I connect my knee to my own elbow.
Now we have a perfect side guard from here, and now she goes to start controlling me and pressing forward. She has no more control over my head and shoulders. And now we can move back to forearm frames, bring everything back inside, and go into our recoveries. Okay, so what this will look like is she throws by. I start with forehand framing. I go to forearm framing, but I'm late on the forearm framing, and she beats me, and she gets her hands connected, okay, most of the time. So as she goes to throw everything by, she comes through. I try to go forehand. It fails. I try to go forearm, and maybe she out-pommels me, and she beats me, okay? Now she goes in, she locks her hands, and I just take this hand through. Now I take my hand up, and now she goes to start pressing forward into a side control. I get my head underneath the crossface. Now she has no more control of my head and shoulders. And now with no control over my head and shoulders, it's very easy to start putting myself back in front of my partner and re-guarding into all kinds of attacks on the upper or lower body.
All right, let's talk about someone who now, instead of drops down and tries to control my head, throws the legs by and tries to go right to a knee on belly instead. Okay?
So she's going to throw my legs by, and this time she creates space between my knee and my elbow, and that gives her an opportunity now to drop her knee down into knee on belly. All right? Your natural reaction is to post on the knee, to post in the upper body, to do things like this. All right? If I post to my partner's knee, there's no reason, no matter how tight I keep my elbow to my own body, there's no reason why she can't blade her hand, shove it through that space, and now she just dives to an underhook and crossface, and she flattens me out. Okay, so this is not what you want to be doing from here. All right, if I push on my partner's upper body, this has no effect on me being able to bring my legs back in, because I can't high leg over because my hips are pinned because of the knee on belly, and I can't bring my knee inside because her leg is physically wedging my leg in place. All right, so pushing and framing with my arms to the upper body won't do much. Okay, what I'm looking to do from here is I'm looking to not only recover, but again, go into attacks. So the second my partner moves into a knee on belly, I'm immediately going to take a cross lat frame like so. So we use, again, a forearm frame at mid-range. From this situation, I look to take my knee and I flare it towards my partner's buttocks so that my thigh is right underneath my partner's butt. Okay? From here, I take my right hand, my near hand, and I just go elbow deep underneath my partner's ankle. So she's knee on belly. I just go elbow deep underneath the ankle between myself and her. Actually, this is fine. From here, I'm looking to get her far leg to move towards me. So I flare my knee out towards my partner's buttocks. I go cross lat. When she goes to control my head from here, with a collar tie, for example, when I bump her forward, I can use this cross lat as a direction hand. So I can bump her forward to get her hand out into the floor, and I can use this as a direction hand to start bringing her forwards. I move from a cross lat to a far hamstring only when my partner's hands are on the floor. If I try to reach across here, this is going to be, number one, I won't be able to do anything. Number two, she'll be able to take her hand through, lock a darce, and start to give me issues. So I always make sure I get my partner's hands posted above my shoulder line with a bump forward first, and then I go to my partner's far hamstring. Now from here, I use this left hand as a direction hand to spin underneath my partner, fire my legs over, and then from here, we could lock up into various leg entanglements and either sweep my partner, attack their legs, attack their back, whatever you want to counter from there. Okay? So my partner comes in to pass me initially. She throws the legs by. She goes knee on belly. The second I see this, we go cross lat, forearm post. We go to the buttocks with my thigh, and now I go through elbow deep on the front of the ankle here. When she goes to hold the position, I just give a small bump to put the hands on the floor. And now from here, I use this direction hand to angle. I get to the thigh, to the hamstring, and I use this to angle myself out, fire my legs into place. Now we're ready to go in and attack my partner's legs. Okay? And what this will look like is she goes to pass. She creates that space. And from here, ready to come through and go into attacks on my partner's leg. Okay? Don't get caught up on posting on your partner's knee. Don't get caught up on posting on your partner's upper body. Your partner's coming towards you. So take advantage of that and use it to use their momentum coming forwards to invert underneath them.
Okay? When you invert underneath them, it throws their head offline and makes it incredibly easy for you to expose their legs. Okay? What everyone does is they push their partner away, and then you end up getting very tired. You end up giving up inside position, and it just turns into a disaster. Okay? Always, as someone's coming towards you with a knee on belly, understand they don't yet have control of your head. Okay, so yes, they're past your legs, but they don't actually have any control to pass your guard and control the head and the shoulders. So take advantage of that and use the forward momentum to revert underneath them and enter into the legs, retaining guard, and again, countering. All right, so we've looked at framing off toreandos. We've looked at how to avoid being in a situation where my partner goes knee on belly. Now let's look at a situation where my partner goes into a leg drag instead. So instead of going toreando to outflanking, trying to pass, to side control north-south, or toreando right to a knee on belly, let's go into a situation where our partner doesn't even toreando, and she just moves right to a leg drag. Okay, so she moves into a situation where we're here, and instead of going toreando passing the hip line, like we normally do, she just toreandos just enough to get into a situation where she can drag and start to outflank us here. Okay, because now I'm not all the way past the hip line, but I'm starting to put pressure on my partner by getting the feet and knees to point away from me. Okay, now you can do this. This can be set up from various situations. Two of my favorite ways to set it up are just like I just showed, to just outflank and move here, or to start with a toreando where I throw by like so, and as my partner goes to high leg over and come back in, I just walk back towards my partner's legs and move into a leg drag. But there's very many ways to set this up. Like we spoke about before, she has a grip of my ankle from an outside De La Riva. We can start to monitor my partner's leg from here. If it drifts too far across, we can leg drag and start to play from here. So there's many ways to set it up. We have to understand how we can counter. Okay, so she moves into a leg drag situation, like so. All right, her whole thing is to get her knee to the floor, like so, make some kind of upper body connection, pin the head and shoulders, and then walk around to the side and pass me, okay? So the second I see my partner move to a leg drag, and I know that she's moving to a leg drag because instead of toreando where she steps far past my hip line, she steps just to my hip line and puts the knee in the center. Okay, and usually starts grabbing my leg like so. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm always going to take a grip on my partner's hand like so, and I'm going to immediately start to high leg over. If I can keep my knee pointing towards my partner, I'm going to be in good shape from here. But where it starts to go south is when my partner starts pointing my knee up towards the ceiling, and even worse, away from her. So the second I see her move into a leg drag, I immediately address the grip. I go one, I strip as I high leg over, and then from here I put myself back in front of my partner and make a connection to my partner. Okay, so early stages, she goes to hit a toreando or leg drag, whatever the case is, and ends up in a leg drag. The second I see this, I'm immediately going to come through. I grab my partner's wrist or my partner's knuckle line like so, and from here I'm going to immediately start high legging over. If I find my partner's bringing her head down far towards me and the high leg's impossible, I use a cross shoulder post, like so. So when her head goes to come down on top of mine, I can strip the grip and create space and distance, and then high leg over, okay? So if the head's far out and away, we just go strip, high leg. If the head's moving towards me, we go cross shoulder, strip, and leg comes back through, okay? Now, we find ourselves in a situation where our partner starts pointing my knee away from her. So she comes in and she starts pointing my knee out in this direction, okay? What I cannot have is my partner's knee touching the floor and moving into a situation like so. This is absolutely unacceptable, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use a self-frame. We talked about this in the outside Ashigarami portion, where I frame myself inside my own knee. This time, we're gonna be framing on the outside of our own knee with a wedge on the floor with my elbow and a wedge on my knee with my hand. If she moves to this side of me and there's no self-frame, and she just pushes my knees in this direction, my knees will easily point away from her. But when I self-frame, like so, and now she moves to the side and she goes to push my knees,
I have a strong wedge between my elbow, my hand, and my knee and the floor. So when she goes to start moving me away from her and pointing my knees away, this self-frame stops it. Okay? So as she goes to outflank me and go into a leg drag, I go in and we self-frame like so. Now as she goes to drop her knee to the floor and point my knees away, she can't. From here, I take a cross shoulder post on this side. So when she goes to bring her head over mine and start crushing me, I can make space. Okay? Now at some point, I have to move from a cross shoulder post to address this hand. Okay? I cannot address this hand with my left hand because I'm self-framing. The second this hand comes off my knee, everything collapses. So she moves in, we go self-frame here, and initially cross shoulder post. When she goes to start crushing me from here, bringing your head into position, it's difficult. Now I quickly, after I stabilize this position for a second or two, I quickly move in, and I catch my partner's hand or wrist. Now I strip this grip, and I look to shoot my knee across my partner's hips like so. Okay? So she has a strong grip in here. The self-frame is saving me. The cross-shoulder post frame is saving me. As she goes to continue moving towards me, my knee comes in. Now the second my knee comes in, I immediately come through. I start framing inside my partner's biceps. I start framing with a cross shoulder. I start framing with a forehand grip. I start making space, okay? Whichever one you prefer from here. I start making space between myself and my partner, and I start bringing my leg either over, or I start bringing my leg through the space between her knee and her elbow. And now from here, we can put our partner back in front of us, okay? So she goes to start passing. We come through like so, and we immediately self-frame with a cross shoulder post. She goes to pass me hard from here. I keep her head offline with the cross shoulder, and I keep my knee off the floor with a self-frame. From here we go, and we strip the grip immediately, and we invert our knee. Now, from here, she wants to start bringing her head towards me. So I immediately come through, we go cross shoulder, we use a variety of grips depending on how far or how close she is from me. From here, you see like I feel like I can't highlight. That's fine. I just bring my leg through and around. If I can make more space and we're somewhere around here, now I can come over and we can high leg. There's always a dilemma between high legging over and coming through the space between my partner's knee and elbow. Okay, like so. Okay, so early stages, she comes in. I can still point my knee towards her. From this situation, it's pretty easy to strip the grip, the cross shoulder, bring legs back inside. Okay. This time, somewhere in the middle stages, she outflanks me. I self-frame rather, and now from here, we work on self-framing initially. My knees are starting to point away from her, so that's no good. So I start stripping grips, inverting the knee, and then coming back inside. Worst case scenario, my partner gets her knee to the floor. So she goes through here, and now she's outflanking me. All right? Yes, she's outflanking me. She's technically past my legs, but she's not controlling my head and shoulders. Okay? So from here, I cannot have my hands out like so. The second my hands come to the outside position, you're not in an outside ashigarami anymore, where I have time to fight back to the inside position. The second she steals the inside real estate, you're beat. Okay? I can do everything I want, but if she gets to the inside position, she goes cross-face underhook, and she goes to start moving in this direction, it's going to be hard for me to do anything from here. Okay, whether she goes cross-face on that side, or she goes cross-face underhook on this side, the second I feel this, it's going to be hard for me to recover from here. Okay, if she's smart, she's going to slide her knee up, she's going to steal the inside position, and now as I go to recovering, get my knee inside, my elbow inside, she walks to the side, and I'm getting beat, and you're pretty much done from here. Okay? So when I see this, I keep everything inside. So I never let my elbow drift beyond my rib cage forwards or backwards. This gives up darces on one side or underhooks on the other side. Okay? I never separate my bottom elbow from my rib cage because now this exposes underhooks. So I'm always looking for a cross shoulder post, like so, to dominate space between myself and my partner. And I'm always looking for a reinforced hand on my partner's shoulder, like so. Okay? I can go reinforced hand, and I can go inside bicep, depending on if my partner just pressuring forwards towards me. We make space like so, we reinforce the hand. If my partner is just trying to collar tie me, then we go inside bicep tie. Okay? From this position, I need to make space to invert my right knee. Okay? The closer her chest is towards me, the harder it's going to be. So from here, I look to make space with my upper body, and I look to take my the toes of my left foot and invert them towards the floor. Like so. So that now, from here, I can start reverse shrimping towards my partner and looking to create space with this cross shoulder post. So as she goes to drive forwards into me, I can start reverse shrimping, like so. So I can create space and then invert the right knee, and now we're back in business, ready to go in. Okay, so her knee comes to the floor. I keep the inside position, all right? From here, most of the time, people will get overzealous and they just move to side control, and that actually allows you to invert the right knee much easier. Okay, smart person will stay back towards the legs and keep your knees facing away. But if she just runs towards my head with her hips, then she just allows me to invert my right knee. Okay, that's what most people do, even at black belt world level, but it's absolutely incorrect. All right, a good guard passer is going to stay towards my legs, keep my knees pointing away until she gets upper body inside position. Okay, so assuming I'm dealing with a good guard passer, this is what's going to happen. So from here, I have to make space. So she's coming forward, trying to pommel her hands and get to inside position. I'm stopping her. I invert my my toes of my left foot. I start reverse shrimping. Okay, as she goes to start pressuring forward towards me, I just reverse shrimp until I can invert my knee. I bring the leg back inside, and I'm ready to go. Okay. If my partner again gets overexcited and she's like, okay, I'm past, wrong. She's past your legs. She's not past your guard. If at any point your partner starts circling towards your head, thinking, okay, I'm past his guard, incorrect. You still have the upper body inside position. There's no control of the head. So if she sprints towards your head from here, I bring everything back inside and I can recover easily now. Okay? So those are your early, mid, and late stage recoveries. When you're talking about a partner leg dragging you just initially, or moving from a Toriana to a leg drag, and starting to point your feet and knees away by putting a knee between your legs.
All right, let's talk about someone who moves to a north-south position, okay? Passing to north-south is one of the most effective ways you can pass because it eliminates the need to control your partner's head and shoulders, all right? If you look at the one time in recent years where I've been close to being passed, and now you have to remember, in sub-only matches, you can find a ton of video footage of me getting my guard passed. But that's because it's in situations where guard passes don't matter, like submission-only matches, where you have to gauge how much energy you're using to retain your guard when your partner gets close to a guard pass versus just saying, okay, I'm going to use this much energy to retain my guard for this one guard pass, or I'm just going to let my partner pass my guard, and then 30 seconds later, when he goes to move around, I'll use this much energy to recover. So you have to understand, there's clear examples of me letting people pass my guard to either, one, conserve energy. I saw this a lot in the first Wagner match. Oh, no, sorry, the first Felipe Pena match. Or two, pass my guard just because they're stalling and I couldn't make anything happen from a guard, so I was giving them a little bit to take a little bit. So there's plenty of opportunities that you can pull up when you see my guard get passed. But in situations where I'm not trying to have my guard passed, where there's maybe a points situation where it's low on time and not really much has happened in the match, and I need to win a decision, things like that. The one time in recent years where you've seen someone get close to passing me is Joao Rocha. And why is that? It's because he passed to north-south. Okay. Now you're asking an obvious question probably. Why did you let him play for long amounts of time from north-south? If you know that this is such a hole in the game of guard retention. The answer is simple, because I had a torn LCL. So Joao, when he started passing me, the last couple minutes, he started passing to my right. Right, so now my natural reaction is to high leg over and start to give him problems. But every time he pushed down on my ankle, I felt like my leg was going to break in half because my LCL was torn. So when he started passing to my right, I had no ability to high leg and put him into a scissor guard. I basically couldn't do anything with his leg.
So he started passing in this direction, and I would basically have to play a side guard from here and try to put him back in front of me like so. And then he would start jumping to north-south, and I couldn't high leg over like so, because he would start pushing my ankles down and moving my legs around, and I didn't have any stability in his leg. So he would start moving into north-south, and then I was fighting for minutes at a time from this position, and it's tiring. And then eventually he beat one knee, and I recovered a few times. He beat his second knee, and he was going to start passing me. And because time was short, I had to start turtling, which wasn't really the right option, but I was going to get past, and I didn't want to lose the match off of a guard pass. So I created back exposure, I turtled, and then I rolled back to guard and managed to recover. Okay, but if you look at the one time in competition in recent years where I wasn't trying to have my guard passed, it's actually from Joao Rocha, and it's because he passed to north-south. Okay, and for those haters of you out there who are thinking, oh, well, Vinny jump past his guard. Yes, Vinny passed my guard in a point situation, but because of the weird ACB rules, it didn't actually matter because it was a 10 must scoring system like MMA. And the rules were if you're winning a round, it's 10-9, and it's only a 10-8 round if there's 7 points or more of a difference. So he was already up 2, so I knew he was winning the round, and there wasn't that much time left. And when he passed my guard, it made it 5-0. So it was still 10-9 rounds, so the guard pass didn't actually matter. And he passed to a position where he already had a tight waist, so I was like, fuck this, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to use so much energy to recover when it doesn't even matter if he passed me or not. Okay, so just so we can clear that up for those of you who are going to say, oh, post this clip, be like, oh, Vinny passed him in his points. Yeah, that's the reason. Okay, but nonetheless, you can't just hang out in a situation where your opponent passes to north-south and you just fight from a constant inverted position. Okay, it's very strenuous and tiresome for you to pull your knees to your chest constantly, and there's not many attacks you can do. And your partner basically is just leaning on your feet, ankles, or knees, and pushing your knees away from your chest. So you're basically in a full crunch the whole time. So your entire thing is to find ways to internally rotate within her limbs, get back in front of her, and then make contact, tie your partner up, and then go into counter offense. All right, so let's talk about recovering from north-south when I have 2 of my knees inside my partner's shoulders. Okay, her goals obviously are to put her shoulders and collarbones inside my knees and elbows. Okay, so to break this connection and move to a high tripod. When she initially gets behind me and she goes into north-south, there's basically 2 ways that she can do this. All right, one is she can drop down and she can bring her head close to me, like so, and she can rest on my frames. Or 2, she can stay further away from me, and she can use V-grips on my ankles to start pushing my feet and knees away from my chest. Okay, so let's look at both of these. When I see my partner starts passing to north-south, and she has frames and V-grips on my ankles and shins, and she's pushing my knees away from my chest. Okay, her goal is to push the knees away from the chest, and then to drop down and steal the inside position. All right, so whenever I see this, I start with forehand frames. Okay, again, there's no need for forearm frames here. There's no need for backhand frames here. We use forearm frames to start stripping grips. What I can't have is just a situation where she's leaning her full body weight on my feet, and I'm trying to negate this action of my knees going away from my chest with just my core. So when I see her posing like so, I'm going to look to strip 1 grip. Okay, if I go to strip 2 grips, there's no reason why she can't just immediately drop her elbows down and just beat me to the inside. Okay, so I strip 1 grip while I keep 1 knee to 1 elbow. So if at any point she goes to drop down and pass me and she gets an elbow inside, she can only get 1 elbow inside, and I can use this to recover and bring my second knee back inside. So I address 1 grip and I keep 1 elbow and knee connection. So as she goes to V-grip my ankles, we go here and here. I strip 1 grip off like so. Now I use this to start moving slightly off angle. Just a slight angular change will make it hard for her to drop to north-south. If she goes to drop down now, it's difficult. Her hand has to be on this side of my body in order to pass me. So I move the arm across the center line and I take a slight angle. Now from here, I take a forearm post on my partner's shin, and I start to use this to move around, high leg over, and now either put my 2 legs back in front and go inside, or move to a situation where I can control my partner's hips, where now she goes to hit a follow-up attack and it's difficult. Now I have control of my partner's ankle, and they can start to follow up. So when I see my partner pass the north-south and go with V-grips on my ankles, we go one knee elbow, one forehand post on my partner's tricep. I clear one grip off. If at any point she goes to drop down close to me, I still have a knee elbow connection, so it's hard. So as she goes to stand, we start to use this to push my partner's arm and elbow across my center line and take a slight angle out towards you guys. Like so. So now, as she goes to recover from here, the elbow gets caught. I take my second hand, I post on the shin, and now I look to bring this leg up and around and catch or catch. Okay, form some kind of contact with my partner. So she starts with distance and grips. We come in, knee elbow connection, we catch, and we use some kind of post on my partner's legs. If I feel like I can't get to this leg right away, I go with this leg. 1, 2. Now we put ourselves back in front of our partner and we can easily recover. Okay? That's when she goes 2 V grips and she's pushing my knees away from my chest and there's space between myself and my partner. All right, so now let's look at someone who's not taking V grips, but coming down close to us and pressuring us and trying to get knees and elbows inside, or elbows inside by knees and elbows. So this time, she chooses to pass the north-south, and she just drops down heavy on me, and I buy frames inside. Okay, so she drops down, she sprawls, we play a game like so. Okay, first things first, I want to make sure that my elbows are higher than the level of my knees. Right now, my knees are higher than the level of my elbows. So if she pressures forward, she's always going to beat me from here. So I keep my elbows higher than the level of my knees. So when she goes to pressure forward, she slides onto my shins. Okay? If it's the opposite, and from here, my knees drift outside her shoulders, she beats me. Okay? So I always make it a point to have my elbows higher than the height of my knees. So as she goes to pressure down into me, she can never create space between my knee and my elbow by connecting her shoulder to the top of my knee and pushing it away from my chest. Okay? So we're in a situation like so. Now, from here, I have to look back up a second. I have to look to start putting myself back in front of her. Okay, I can't fight forever from here. So from this situation, I'm going to look to start off-angling and misaligning my center line with hers. What? And start misaligning my center line with hers. From here, I'm going to look to start taking cross posts. Okay, so I can do this in one of 2 ways. I can go right to a leg first and make an angle, or I can cross post to my partner's hip and I can make an angle. Okay, again, we're using forearm posts from here. Okay, the reason why we're using forearm posts is because my partner's closer to me now. So we go either inside a thigh, like so, where we go 1 and out angle, or we go to a hip first with a cross post, and now we look to create an angle. Okay? Now that my partner's further away from me, now we can switch from a forearm to a forehand post on the hip or on the thigh. And now, because my partner's so far out and away from me, there's no reason why I can't just extend my body, put her back in front, and then regard from here. Okay? So she's in on north-south, she gets close and she starts pressuring into me like so. First thing is I have good knee and elbow positioning, okay? Now, I want to look to start creating an angle where I can put her back in front of me. Right now, she's completely parallel with me, north-south. So I have to off-angle our center line slightly. I do this in a variety of different ways, okay? 1 with the forearm post on my inside of my partner's thigh, 1 with the cross forearm post on my partner's hip, 1 with a forehand post to my partner's thigh like so, where I can start to create an angle. Anything that gives me slight angle is all I need, like so. Now we start to continue creating that angle. My partner goes to walk towards me, the post on the hip stops it. So I can't just create an angle and have her circle and regain that angle. So I always circle and I create some kind of post. So when she goes to walk, she can't. Now from here, I can start extending my hips away, and now I can start posting on various parts of my partner's upper body. When she goes to start walking towards me and finishing the north-south, I can easily high leg over, put my partner back in some kind of guard, and now we put ourselves back in front of our partner, and we can counterattack from there. Okay? So my partner starts to pressure me. Your entire goal is to rotate internally inside your partner, having the inside position, and then put her back in front and follow up with counterattacks. Okay? We do this by using some kind of post to off angle our center lines, and then look to start spinning back in front of my partner.
All right, let's look at how we can put both of our knees back in and look to go into our previous escapes when my partner beats one of my knees. Okay, so typically your partner's not going to just dive into north-south and beat both your knees at the same time. It'll be an incremental thing where they pass, they outflank you, they move to north-south. You have two knees in, they make space, they bring one of their shoulders in, and then a second shoulder comes in. All right, this is your pattern for any high-level players, a guard player versus a high-level guard passer. So she comes in. However she does it, she gets to a situation where one of her shoulders comes inside. Okay? Now this can be a real problem from here, because now she can start playing a game where she can look to pommel her second hand inside. Right? She can start dropping this shoulder down and walking me in one direction or the other. No, start walking me in one direction or the other. Where now she can start pushing her head towards my far hip. The elbow comes inside, and then I start getting beat from here. So she can change angles. Okay? If she's down in north-south, and I'm here, I have no ability to change the angles, and I have no ability to switch the plane at which my shoulder line is on. Okay? My shoulder line will be resting on top of her frames, which means there's no ability to go up and down with either shoulder. When I'm here, both my shoulders can't move. When I have one shoulder inside, like so, now I have the ability to start moving my shoulders and blading my shoulders so that frames start to slip off and things start to get hairy for her. So now, as she goes to keep that guard in place, I can start moving to situations where I pommel hands in. I can start shifting, where I go in one direction, and I cut back in the other direction. I pommel hands in. I can start blading my shoulders. I can start walking in situations where I walk her hips to the ground, and I start pommeling hands inside. And because I can move my shoulders up and down, and I can start blading my shoulders and moving off angle, it starts to get hard for her. Okay, and the whole time now, she's relying on one knee-elbow connection to recover. So the question for us on bottom is, how can I insert my second knee back to two knee-elbow connections and then rotate inside my partner? So she gets one shoulder inside. Okay, like so. From here, you're going to notice that it's going to be impossible for me to put my left knee back inside her shoulder. Okay? If I have, back up, just legs back, more, your head's by the hip. Okay? It's going to be impossible for me to bring my left knee back inside her shoulder. If I try to just use my left elbow to lift the shoulder, there's never going to be enough space. Okay? What's going to happen is I got to extend my forearm and my hand's going to slip off. Okay, because I don't have enough extension with a bent arm. So what I have to do is find a way to get my left knee back inside her shoulder like so. Okay? The only way I'm going to do this in a live situation against a talented opponent is by moving my right leg. Okay? Right now, you see my right foot is lower than my right knee. The second I raise my right foot higher than my right knee, it makes space between her head and my hips. So now when she goes to put all the pressure she wants, if I just extend my right leg, it makes it easy for me to insert my left knee. And now we go into the same previous escapes we looked at. So the second I see her shoulder come inside, I just straighten the opposite leg, so that my foot comes higher than the level of my knee. And now I bring everything back inside and we're ready to go. Okay? So from the opposite side, we're here. I feel like I can't bring my right knee back inside. I cannot make space with my right hand, it'll slip off. So instead, I use my left leg to do the lifting. As she goes to pass, she goes to put heavy pressure on. It's almost embarrassingly easy to bring your right knee back inside. And then we can start going into all of our counters and reguards that we did before. Okay? So the key when you're losing the battle for the inside position is
this knee elbow connection and the height of this foot. If my foot is lower than my knee, you'll never be able to insert that knee and get a knee elbow connection. So I raise the foot higher than the knee, and that will always make space to bring your leg inside, even with someone much bigger than you. If she's here, and she has one knee out like so, from here, if she goes to insert that knee without moving her leg, it's impossible. When she straightens her right leg, the knee comes in easy. And she does almost no work, okay? Here, she goes to insert it, it's impossible. The second the right leg straightens with all my weight on her, knee comes in very easily. This is super, super important to understand, okay? Being able to put your knee back inside and form a knee-elbow connection is completely contingent upon your ability to get your foot higher than your knee. And the good news for you is that's incredibly easy. All you have to do is extend your leg. All right, so now let's say worst case scenario, my partner beats both of my knees, but I still have hands inside. So we get into a situation where she comes north-south and she beats both of my knees, and now she's in a situation like so. Okay, the issue is if I try to keep her shoulders on one flat plane and just extend both of my arms from here, they're both just going to slip off, and this is going to happen. So the second I see this, that she brings her head in the center, I have to immediately take an angle, all right? So instead of trying to go straight up, I just push her to one side, like so. Now, I don't move her shoulders up, I just move one of my knees down, okay? So I keep her shoulders on the same plane. I keep my tension running through my forearms. Now from here, I just move to one side. Okay, whether it be left or right, doesn't matter. You're in the same position on both sides. If I try to bring my knees in from here and she puts pressure on me, you feel like you're never going to be able to do anything. So all I'm going to do is just going to push my partner out to one side. When she goes to put pressure on me, I bring one knee inside. And now you play the same game you just did. She's going to walk back to center. You bring two knees in, and now we're ready to recover. Okay? This is super, super important because all the best guys are gonna, I mean, I have to do it now because I don't even think about it, but eventually they're gonna be passing to north-south because they're gonna realize they don't need to control the head. All right. So once I talk about this and people actually study this, they're gonna realize that, okay, we should be passing to north-south. So this is gonna be what you have to worry about when guys are passing you into a north-south position and don't have to control your head. They beat both my knees from here. All right. If I try to bring my knees inside, it's gonna be impossible. So all I have to do is angle out to one side. Because I have concave shoulders, this is easy. Like so. So I don't raise the height of her shoulders and fight against her body weight. I just simply lower the height of my knee. One knee comes in. She goes to walk back to center. Two knees come in. And now we can look to start framing and putting ourselves back in front of our partner. Okay? So when your partner beats both of your knees, you can't raise the height of her shoulders. You're fighting against her full body weight from there. So instead of raising her shoulders to get in the inside, lower your knee by taking an angle and moving over to one hip or the other. All right, so just before we move on to being stacked and our opponent trying to pass, we're just going to do a little closing statement now on flanking. Again, your whole goal is to keep your partner in front of you with constant kazushi in contact with them so they can't just immediately just blow by your legs and get to the J point, okay? But you're in real jeopardy of having your guard passed, okay? If we can do that, then we'll be on the attack the whole time and an offensive cycle the whole time. Provided my partner can get control of my legs for long enough to outflank me and get to either past my shoulder or hip line or past my shoulder line, then it's a question of, okay, is my opponent still loose passing, or now has she moved forward to a tight passing situation, or she's now trying to control my head and shoulders, okay? Based on where your partner is relative to you, you're going to be using a series of frames, forehand, forearm, and backhand frames to start, and a combination of these three, to start getting everything back to the inside position, getting your feet back inside, getting your knees back inside, and putting your partner back in front of you where you can then counterattack, okay? If your partner manages to come forward and separate the space between your knee and your elbow
and move to a knee on belly. Then we're using the forward momentum to start scooping underneath our partner's ankle, start rotating through and going into counterattacks there. If your partner starts moving beyond your shoulder line to north-south, then we're in a completely different situation, because now you don't have to recognize the difference between a loose pass and a tight pass, because your partner has no need to control your head from there. Whereas when they're passing to side control or mount, there's a critical moment where they have to go from passing your legs to actually passing your guard. So your goals change in a split second from loose passing goals as far as retention goes to tight passing goals. But it's different when you move to north-south, because then there's no reason to control your head. In this case, your entire thing is to off angle so that you can put yourself in a perpendicular situation, okay? What I can't accept is spending long amounts of time where my partner's parallel to me, behind me, okay? I want to keep her in front of me. She's in the exact opposite situation, which is above my shoulders, okay? Whenever I see this, my whole thing is to keep frames, knee-elbow connection, and to off angle our center line and start to put my partner on the side of me so we're perpendicular. And then I can work in increments where I go from north-south back to a almost like pseudo side control, and then I can high leg over and put my partner back in front of me, okay? And obviously there are ways to keep knees inside. If we lose a knee position, if we lose both knee position, we can bring our legs back inside and fight to regard and counterattack. All right, the Toreando game is such an interesting game because there's so many different grips and positions that your partner can make, and you can make not more than a half a second goes by where you're in the same position. You're always constantly changing grips, constantly making small adjustments with your body position, your head position, your hands, where you step, and you have to be able to recognize what your partner's doing, where your partner's at, and how we can react appropriately.